Okay, good afternoon, everybody. Happy Friday, the 20th. Show number one. So we got the same old news, daily news. We got one Billy so far, 28 minutes. We got the X2 report and found a lot of good stuff, like always. So, everybody's still at work, 1 o'clock, Friday. Prayers out to KK. We'll be listening. Hopefully, she'll be in. That's Chico drinking water. Hey, I got a good video for you to play. About 13, 15-minute long. I came on earlier just for a few minutes to give the breaking news out about the terrorist court decision. They overturned it. Come on up there in the window. Jump up there. Come on. Oh, there's Chico. Who's that? Who's that right there? Huh? That's Chico.
Says he can't read it either. And I looked, and behold, a pig.
We'll be starting here in a few more minutes here. A lot of people are at work, so mm. Get up there. Yeah, yeah. Open the window up and then we'll start. Come on. Yeah. So yeah, a lot of people are working, so hopefully they're listening. I got logged into Telegram. So this one guy, Telegram. I can't remember. We played them. It might be a new one, but a lot of people might not have seen them before. They're short clips. This one's 8 minutes.
Believe Barack Obama, Michelle Obama, Tim Walz, Ilhan Omar, Tony West, Kamala Harris. All of these people are linked together with the fraud that we're seeing unfold right now. And I'm going to explain to you how it is. See, it starts way back when Barack Obama was president. When he was president, he was in charge of appointing somebody to the Department of Justice Civil Division, Tony West. And you say, well, who's Tony West? It's Kamala Harris's brother-in-law. So he appoints Kamala Harris's brother-in-law, Tony West, but not only does he do that, but he removes the restriction that Congress has to approve any settlement over $100,000. See, Congress used to have to approve that. Once Barack took away that restraint, DOJ can sue for anything with nobody's approval. They could sue for $1 gazillion, and Congress doesn't have to approve for a settlement. Why is the settlement important? Because in a settlement, you don't have to disclose all the law firms involved. You just settle. Now, people complain when Tony West was settling all of these cases. They were all minority-based cases. People suing the Justice Department for minority-based this, minority-based that. The Justice Department, what they would do because of Tony West is settle 50 million, 40 million, $1 billion. Nobody knew because they wouldn't release it because Barack Obama already signed off saying you don't got to tell nobody. So Kamala Harris's brother-in-law was taking all of this money, giving it to all of these law firms. Now, you know, Barack, he's an attorney. Michelle Obama, she's an attorney. So all of these attorneys out there were getting all of this money from the DOJ now, being fed and loving it. Tony West, another attorney, he's now the head of Uber. That's a whole nother story. We'll talk about that later. He's the head of Uber legal department. But now all of these attorneys are eating right now. Nobody knows how much money is going on. Kind of like with BLM, when people were donating all this money to BLM, but BLM wasn't giving money to the people who it was intended for. That's what these law firms were doing. They were keeping the funds. So people were suing the Justice Department on behalf of minorities. Minorities weren't getting the money, though. The law firms were getting the money. So after they saw how this scheme was working, now you got Ilhan Omar. Ilhan Omar, Michelle Obama. What was Michelle Obama big for? We got to feed all these kids. This is about nutrition. We got to make sure every kid has a meal. That was Michelle Obama. Ilhan Omar says, oh, we could do that in Minnesota. I'll start a whole new program. So now she's using all of the legalese from Michelle Obama, go to Minnesota. They create this feeding our future, no kid starves. And where did all the money end up? In Kenya, China, Somalia. Who's linked to Kenya? Barack Obama. Kenyan relatives. Who's in China? Tim Walz. He has all these Chinese connections. All the banks in China know who Tim Walz is. He was a big politician. He's got connections over there. So when it came time for the Democrats to choose, after Biden says, I can't do this, they chose Kamala Harris. Kamala Harris linked in with who? The DOJ already, Tony West. He already went to Uber. But guess who's also they're linked in with? Tim Walz in Minnesota through Ilhan Omar. So now you got all of these people who are all linked together, already got previous dealings with each other. The Democrats are like, why don't we run a primary? Barack is like, we're not running a primary. We're going to appoint Kamala Harris. Kamala Harris, you're going to choose Tim Walz. Everybody's like, who the hell's Tim Walz? See, Tim Walz has already been deep in it with Ilhan Omar and Michelle Obama's food programs. They've already been deep in scamming already. So they need to choose somebody that can keep it rolling. You can't choose an outside Democrat. You can't choose a Pete Buttigieg or anybody like that because they're going to be like, what the hell is all this going on? Now, when Trump finally won and he came in and he says, we're cleaning this all up, everybody started resigning. The head of Social Security office resigning. All of these people started resigning because they knew the jig was up. All of this money that they were putting up for minorities and putting up for illegals, it was all just being swindled. Nobody was being taken care of. All these cities are going bankrupt right now because the feds weren't funneling this money to it. The states was like, well, we'll fund and you guys reimburse us. And the feds were like, okay,
about
$9 billion is flowing out of this country into over other banks. Now, if any bank here in America was like, we're getting billions and billions of dollars put into our banking system, what the hell is going on? But if you're doing it in China, you're doing it in Kenya, you're doing it in Somalia, you're doing it in Sweden, you're doing it in the Cayman Islands, you're putting this money all over the place. American banks don't know what's up. You can even put it in banks over in Ukraine. Ukraine was kind of getting money on. It's like, hey, we'll help you guys move the money. As long as, you know, we got our man Zelensky in power, we will help you move the money. Everything was happening right in front of everybody's faces. Now they want to claim, oh, it's not as big as what it is. I did a story about this 2 years ago, talking about Tim Walz and Tony West and all of this fraud. 2 years ago, I was talking about it. It's now 2025, and people are finally saying, hey, Tim Walz is involved in fraud. I said it 2 years ago. I said, this dude is in bed with Tony West. Tony West was running fraud at the DOJ. Everybody was talking about investigating Tony West, and all of a sudden it just disappeared. When Trump won, it disappeared. Like, what happened? Were we investigating this guy or what? He was the one scamming the DOJ. He was using minorities to fund all of these law firms who were in turn giving money to Kamala Harris, an attorney, Michelle Obama, attorney, Barack Obama, attorney, Tony West, attorney. So all of our tax dollars are flowing to all these attorneys. Where's the money at? And once Barack Obama already knew Obamacare was a scam from the get-go, He was like, this is going to be too easy. We've got illegals coming in from Somalia, illegals coming in from all over the world. We can have them apply for and use Medicaid, Medicare, all of these services, creating dummy companies and everything else to make sure we trap the tax dollars in our scheme. We don't let the Americans into the scheme. We do the scheme with the people coming into the country that don't know how our laws work. We're the attorneys here. We just need a bunch of patsies. So all of these people in the Somalian community has no idea they were being played. You guys are being used. You got autistic kids, you got hungry kids, you need housing, you need lodging. All of these people were being used by a group of attorneys who had this grand scheme on how to get tax dollars under everybody's noses using programs and NGOs. I'm telling you, this goes way deeper than what a lot of people think. Tim Walsh and Ilhan Omar are not masterminds. This was a mastermind affair. This right here started at the very, very top a long time ago, knowing we could get tax dollars out of these people if we play by the rules. The only way they could play by the rules is if they got people that didn't really know the rules. You need people who think this is on the up and up, but you're using scams to get there. You're using a collection of people who know exactly how to work through the loopholes. You're getting kickbacks. So a lot of politicians were getting kickbacks. A lot of agencies out there are getting kickbacks. You can't tell me these people saw all that money come through and they didn't know the wiser. You can't tell me that. These are intelligent people with degrees, with experiences in law, with experience in politics, experience in government agencies. And you telling me a group of Somali pirates who probably didn't even have high school educations tricked everybody out of $9 billion? I'm not buying it. Now Tim Walsh and Ilhan Omar are sitting on the hot seat and the other people in the backdrop like, yeah, don't say our name. Whatever you do, don't say our names. I said y'all names 2 years ago. I think we better start looking into it.
Okay, that was a good one. Did you hear that first one there, Flying Eagle? I don't think that's old. Can't remember playing that, but he has a second one out.
I told you Obama's at the top of the pyramid. Now, guess who just resigned from Goldman Sachs? Obama's top
2
attorney.
minutes on this one.
Now, she was all in the files. I call them the Island Boy files because if I say his name, they're going to end up kicking my video out and they won't put it into the algorithm. So I'm going to start calling him the Island Boy, and y'all know who I'm talking about. She was all in Island Boy's files. And now all of a sudden, it's getting to where the people around her are getting implicated because she's at Goldman Sachs, all about money. Island Boy was all about money and financing things. There's her name attached to a bunch of documents, and everybody in these documents will be researched. See, when Trump opened up the documents, he didn't really, all the people who were searching for names and dates and times and all that, it was all being logged. Everything was being logged the whole time. And now they're upset saying that Trump set them up. He opened the files up to allow us to search for everything and unredacted everything. But then he started finding out who was looking at what files. He set us all up. Why do you think Obama's top attorney, she dipped out, she bailed, resigned? Because I'm telling you, he is at the top of the pyramid. There's a lot going on. And right now he's pretty quiet about everything. You see, he don't talk about the files that often because he knows exactly what's going on. He can implicate himself. Then he's involved in perjury, things like that. His top attorney, she's out of there. I'm telling you, Trump played a great chess game. He let everybody egg him on. Open the files, open the files, open the files. He unredacted it. Everybody ran to the files and it was all digital. He did it online. Everybody was online looking up all the names and everything. They were tracking every single person who was looking up names and what names they were looking for, whether or not they were searching for, looking up keywords and statements. Everybody got set up. See, now if Trump was in the files, don't you think they would have released something by now? He unleashed all the files. The DOJ had these files for almost a decade. Why is nothing about Trump out in the open? 10 years they had these files. Why is nothing about Trump out there? But all of these Democrats are in. I'm telling y'all, check out the video in my pinned comments. You won't understand what I'm talking about.
Okay, those are two good ones there. I finally found him on Telegram. I got two photos here for the next video. I don't know if it's a video or a... So here just came out. Stay indoors. Warning of toxic air blankets. Detroit and Great Lakes. Well, that's an hour. That's an hour from me, and I see it's kind of muggy out. It's like the pit. It's like sort of like the picture and everything. So that was interesting. The next photo. Guess who got the black eye? What do you know? I got a 2-minute one.
The Epstein files dropped on January 30th, and within 1 week, 6 different countries suddenly announced cancer cures. That's not a coincidence.
January 30, 2026, Epstein files released. February 3-7, 2026, Spain, China, Cuba, Russia, Japan, and Australia all announced breakthrough cancer treatments at the exact same time. The U.S. withdrew from the WHO on January 22nd, and suddenly cures appear everywhere.
Wait, so for decades we had no cancer cures. Then the Epstein files exposed big pharma connections, and suddenly everyone has cures.
Bill Gates was named in the Epstein files. Gates has massive investments in pharmaceutical companies and WHO funding. Within days of his name being exposed, countries start announcing treatments the WHO allegedly suppressed.
So you're saying they were hiding cancer cures to protect pharmaceutical profits?
Look at the timing. Pancreatic cancer vaccine, 60 to 80% success rate in trials. Colorectal cancer immunotherapy breakthroughs. Russian mRNA cancer vaccine, all announced in a 7-day window after Epstein files dropped.
But couldn't this just be coincidental timing with World Cancer Day on February 4th?
That's the cover story, but ask yourself, why did countries wait until after the U.S. left the WHO to announce these? Social media exploded saying America has been holding back development for years to please pharmaceutical giants.
So the WHO was the gatekeeper preventing cures from being released.
Gates funded the WHO. Gates is named in Epstein files, meeting with him multiple times. Gates has billions invested in big pharma. Now that he's exposed and the U.S. left WHO, suddenly the floodgates open with cancer breakthroughs.
You're connecting Epstein to cancer suppression through Bill Gates and the WHO?
The conspiracy theory writes itself. Keep people sick, sell them expensive treatments forever, make billions. Cure them once, you lose the customer. Epstein's blackmail kept this system protected.
So Epstein wasn't just trafficking, he was blackmailing people to maintain control over entire industries?
Within 1 week of files being released, pancreatic cancer breakthroughs, colon cancer treatments, lung metastases cures, HPV-related cancer vaccines, blood cancer therapies all simultaneously announced.
That timing is genuinely suspicious. Why all at once if these were in development for years?
Because the people protecting big pharma profits just got exposed in the Epstein files. Once their blackmail network collapsed, countries felt safe to finally release what they'd been sitting on.
So we could have cured cancer years ago, but it was suppressed to maintain pharmaceutical profits?
The most profitable patient is one who stays sick but never dies. Epstein's network made sure that system stayed protected. Until now.
This is the darkest thing I've ever...
Okay, that's a cartoon image video? Call it. All right, Final, we got an important one here that came out on the 18th. It's about 9 minutes, so let me know if we it's safe and we played it yet. I guess I can't play it. They won't let me play it. We'll go on to the next one. Let's do...
Thursday, February 19th,
minutes on this one.
2026. Hello, I'm John Michael Chambers. This is your War Report. I ask you to listen with love, as where we go one, we go all. The following report has been provided in part by Guardian Daniel R. Everything has changed.
Sounds good,
Nobody
Jay.
in the Trump administration fears Congress. Most of them are crooks and are in office because of their fraudulent actions. They are no longer the protected class. The two-tier justice system is gone. The hunters have become the hunted, and the hunt is on. All planned, all timed. Let's remember how we got here. Elon and Trump stage a very public fight after their whirlwind bromance to get him elected. Elon demands the Epstein files be released and wants full transparency. Anybody remember how Elon helped bait the trap? Here's his post, I'll read it to you, on X that has since been deleted. Quote, "Time to drop the really big bomb. Donald Trump is in the Epstein files. That is the real reason they have not been made public," end quote. The Democrats, they hold public rallies with victims and claim Trump and Bondi are hiding the truth. Epstein buddy Steve Bannon joins the circus. For years, none of them ever cared about Epstein until Elon lit the match. Then Trump throws fuel on the fire. He calls the demand for the Epstein files, quote, a hoax. All right, Q drop, $37.99, January 28th, 2020 at 2:39 p.m. Eastern. You don't think we highlighted Epstein for no reason, did you? Those who were once protected are no longer. Timing is everything. Hunters become prey. Q. Trump calling it a hoax instantly lights an inferno on social media as more fools pile into the fight over releasing the Epstein files. It brings a nationwide focus that was planned, of course, from the beginning. All eyes on. Trump even stages a White House photo op with a lot of influencers who are demanding that he release the files. Anybody remember the photos with the influencers at the White House holding up folders? That was the tease. Turns out the only files the influencers got were ones that had already been released before. Nothing new. This turns up the heat. Now, even more people demand to release all the Epstein files as a loud call goes out from all the usual suspects to fire Pam Bondi. She's accused of protecting Trump. The whole Democrat leadership goes all in on releasing the Epstein files as a distraction for their many, many exposed crimes. They accuse Trump of being a pedophile. Q drop 3728, December 19th, 2019 at 9:05 a.m. Eastern. Quote, friend, patriot, hold your head up high. POTUS was not harmed in any way today other than on paper. Sometimes you must sacrifice yourself for the greater good. I will gladly take all those slings and arrows for you, President said, but even that can be undone. The enormity of what is coming will shock the world. Pray. Q. And don't forget, during this time, Bondi announced that millions of more documents on Epstein were discovered that, quote, nobody knew about. Coincidence? The pressure builds. The enemy think they have once again trapped Trump. Who really has the advantage? Q drop 3596, November 15th, 2019 at 1:38 p.m. Eastern. What advantage might exist when you know the other side's playbook? Enjoy the show. Q. Now, after the newly discovered Epstein files are announced, Congress quickly moves to pass the Epstein Files Transparency Act and sends it to Trump's desk, daring him to veto it. After months of buildup, leading to this moment, Trump finally, quote, caves. He signs the law and demands that Bondi release all the Epstein files. Boom and boomerang. And now, Trump, Elon, and
It's
Bondi
not over.
just trapped them all. Trump was completely exonerated. He was in the files, all right. He's the hero. Trump was the one who helped expose Epstein and Maxwell years ago and was the one, as president, who finally had both of them arrested so they would finally face justice for their crimes. And now, Bondi holds evidence of the members in Congress who were involved in the, quote, conspiracy to frame Trump and those who were involved personally with Epstein or covering up his crimes. Search engine breadcrumbs. Checkmate. All part of the plan. This is why the Anons and the Panikins, we learned the Q drops to prepare. Pay attention, people. It's time to unite with one heart and one mind in truth. The truths are now being revealed, and it is the truth that shall set us free. So do share it far and wide, and remember, where we go one, we go all.
Okay, that's that one guy everybody likes. Got the lady from Texas. Seven minutes on this one.
Food that was supposed to be delivered to homeless people. This, as Governor Gavin Newsom can't explain where $25 billion in homeless spending went. Employees of the LAHSA were caught on hidden cameras throwing sandwiches, apples, cookies, water, and other items straight into dumpsters behind their Panorama City headquarters. Meanwhile, tens of thousands of homeless people are going hungry on the streets of Los Angeles, just blocks away. The footage was taken during an investigation in 2022. Some of the crews delivered a few of the food items, but most spent their taxpayer-funded shifts driving around and stopping at places like Target, Starbucks, and McDonald's while passing by homeless camps without handing out a single meal. They returned to their office and unloaded the boxes of food into the trash. LAHSA oversees billions in federal, state, county, and city funds for homeless services. When presented with the evidence, it decided to defend its employees instead of taking accountability, claiming the food was perishable and homeless people didn't want it. However, the investigation found that no refrigeration was used during hours-long drives, and shelters like the Union Rescue Mission said they never received any excess food. Critics say this is one of many examples of how LA's homelessness industrial complex isn't helping the homeless. Instead, it's funneling tens of millions, even billions of taxpayer dollars into programs that disappear the money instead of delivering results. California has the highest homeless population in the nation at 181,000. LAHSA's budget for fiscal year 25 topped $915 million, with Los Angeles taxpayers contributing about $320 million of that. Much of it passed through to contractors with little oversight. For 2026, the county is allocating $908 million in homeless funding. Japan is eliminating Islam from their country and making Muslim immigration extremely difficult by denying religious accommodations that contradict Japanese traditions. Experts say this is not considered discrimination, but is a deliberate strategy to prioritize its citizens and customs while rejecting the invasion of Islamic practices that they say have eroded societies across Europe. Japan will not provide halal meals. Muslims must cook their own food, and no mandates will be placed on businesses or public institutions to cater to Muslims, unlike in Western countries where schools, prisons, and hospitals bend over backwards to appease Muslim demands. Mosque construction is nearly impossible due to local opposition, zoning hurdles, and protests from residents who say Islam disrupts the harmony of their neighborhoods. Public calls to prayers and street praying are banned. Oversized Muslim gatherings that spill over into parks have led to crackdowns and deportations for, quote, culturally incompatible foreigners. The moves are being made by Japan's new prime minister, Sanai Takaichi, a conservative leader. She serves as both the prime minister and the president. She is shifting policy so Japan does not suffer from the same open border issues that are plaguing places like Sweden, France, and the UK. And the approach is already working. An Iranian regime leader recently said their aggressive push to spread Islam in Japan has fallen flat. Experts are saying other countries need to take note. Okay, guys, before we get to more news, I want to tell you about a service that Chapter, a company I've partnered with, is offering for people who are trying to get in the right Medicare plan or know someone who is. And with everything we've been finding out about how a lot of these types of healthcare programs at the Munich Security Conference. However, critics are pointing out that the Obama administration was the creator of Kids in Cages, a nickname given to the administration for its child detention facilities that locked kids in small rooms surrounded by chain-linked fences, something the Democrats and mainstream media would later blame Trump for. During the 2014 surge of migrants, the Obama administration detained tens of thousands of unaccompanied minors who were housed in chain-link structures described as cages. Facilities in places like Nogales, Arizona, and Brownsville, Texas, forced children to lie on mats on the floor behind the wire fencing, with reports of overcrowding and limited amenities. The Obama administration expanded family detention centers and separated families, while unaccompanied children were held in the cages for a prolonged period of time. Mainstream media outlets and Democrats ignored them under Obama, but labeled them concentration camps under Trump. Hillary Clinton herself even criticized Obama for creating those kids in cages. Okay, here are some fast facts for you. Under Obama, 67 people died in custody. Academic research by Northwestern University Deportation Research Clinic estimated that well over 4,000 U.S. citizens experienced immigration detention or deportation in 2010 alone, which was the Obama administration. Obama also deported American citizens, including Mark Little, a North Carolina-born citizen with mental disabilities who was deported to Mexico in 2009 despite evidence of his citizenship. He later received a settlement. In 2008, Andres Robles, another U.S. citizen, was deported to Mexico. He returned and was awarded a $350,000 settlement from the government. In 2008, Davina Watson, a New York U.S. citizen, was held in an Alabama ICE detention center for 3 years. He had to prove his citizenship without an attorney. Clinton also deported American citizens like Miguel Silvestre, who was deported twice in 1999. Data during the Clinton administration is harder to come by because systems weren't in place yet. However, experts say the foundations of modern immigration detention and deportation trace directly to the Clinton years. Meanwhile, the Trump administration has not deported a single American citizen, does not keep kids in cages, and has actually rescued more than 145,000 of the more than 350,000 migrant kids that were lost during the Biden administration.
That's what you need to know. In Dallas, Christina Awani. Have you ever heard?
Okay, our lady from Texas is there. We haven't heard in a while. I got the two ladies on TikTok coming up. I got the one, the short one. Under 4 minutes.
Information that will change the national conversation.
There are going to be significant efforts by foreign powers, some friends, some enemies, that were trying to meddle in the system, and they got pretty far down that path. And I think when senators realized their state could have been targeted, when senators realized that the intention of the identities of some of their voters might have been assumed, I think there's going to be a different debate in America.
Now, if what you just heard surprises you and you miss the significance of Rubio's full trip, the House Judiciary Report, and the new U.S. counter operations in Europe, then I need you to do something right now. Subscribe to Promethean Action's free newsletter at PrometheanAction.com. We cover this fight from the standpoint of the real historical battle between empire and sovereign nations, the battlefield most people don't even know exists. The link is in the description. Now, let's go deeper, because Europe's censorship machine didn't appear out of nowhere. It has a blueprint, and it was written down. In her Monday brief, Susan Kokinda highlighted Rubio's declaration that deindustrialization was a deliberate policy. She told you how the British Empire's Council on Foreign Relations sold a policy called controlled disintegration of our economy to successive U.S. presidents, starting with Jimmy Carter. I want to show you the other side of that same project. because at the same time the CFR was promoting the deliberate destruction of our economy, the Trilateral Commission Samuel Huntington was selling the idea that democracy itself was in crisis. Here's what Huntington actually wrote. And I want you to hear these words carefully because this isn't my interpretation. This is only some of what he put on paper. He wrote, "We have come to recognize that there are potentially desirable limits to economic growth. There are also potentially desirable limits to the indefinite extension of political democracy. Democracy will have a longer life if it has a more balanced existence." Did you catch that? Desirable limits to democracy. He's saying the problem isn't tyranny. The problem is that you have too much say in your government. And then in the appendix, it's the section where they lay out what to actually do about it. Huntington wrote this: "The expansion of higher education can create frustrations and psychological hardships among university graduates who are unable to secure the types of jobs to which they believe their education entitles them. A program is then necessary to lower the job expectations of those who receive a college education." A program to lower your expectations? They didn't just want to limit democracy. They wanted to train you to stop expecting a decent life. And then they built a system to make sure you didn't get one. After the collapse of the Soviet Union, the Trilats met again in Washington in April of 1992 and revived Huntington's ideas and program. One day after that meeting concluded, an Oxford professor named Norman Stone published a commentary in the London Daily Telegraph titled, "Coming Next on the Cards, Fascism with a Human Face." This is the post-1990 version of democracy that Marco Rubio was referencing in Munich.
That infamous wall that had cleaved this nation into two came down, and with it an evil empire. And the East and West became one again. But the euphoria of this triumph led us to a dangerous delusion that we had entered, quote, "the end of history," that every nation would now be a liberal democracy, that the ties formed by trade and by commerce alone would now replace nationhood, that the rules-based global order, an overused term, would now replace the national interests, and that we would now live in a world without borders where everyone became a citizen of the world.
Its key institutions in our country were the National Endowment for Democracy, USAID, and the U.S. Institute for Peace, which under the banner of democracy building conducted color revolution, regime change operations on behalf of London and Wall Street financiers throughout the world. When Donald Trump declared his candidacy in 2016 on the election, my friends.
Okay, that's the first one there. I got her friend, hers is similar to her video. Be 18 minutes, and then after that one we'll do Billy Bean. Billy Bean will be 28 minutes.
Said that the destruction of the American economy was deliberate.
Deindustrialization was not inevitable. It was a conscious policy choice, a decades-long economic undertaking that stripped our nations of their wealth, of their productive capacity, and of their independence.
He's right. It wasn't an accident. It wasn't market forces. It was a plan written down 50 years ago, and today we're going to give you the receipts. Now, you've seen the reports about the U.S.-European face-off at Munich, how the globalists marched a lineup of failing European leaders and American has-beens and wannabes onto the stage to challenge President Trump. But even the pro-MAGA coverage of Marco Rubio's powerful speech missed the bombshell that the deindustrialization was deliberate. Now, we didn't miss it because we were there in 1977 when the Council on Foreign Relations announced their plan to do it, when they called for, quote, "the controlled disintegration of the world economy," unquote. I'm Susan Kokinda, and I was part of the team that exposed that report 50 years ago. So when I heard these words come out of Marco Rubio's mouth, I knew that what we were seeing is the most significant challenge to British imperial policy in modern American history. Now, if this is a fight you want to follow, please hit those like, share, and subscribe buttons so we can stay in touch and we can expand our reach. Here's what I'm going to cover today. First, what Rubio actually said and the panicked reaction from the Europeans who were at the same conference. Second, the 1977 CFR report that laid out the deliberate destruction of sovereign economies, precisely the destruction that Marco Rubio talked about. And third, how Trumponomics is reviving real economic sovereignty. So let's start with what Secretary of State Rubio laid out at Munich.
In this delusion, we embraced a dogmatic vision of free and unfettered trade, even as some nations protected their economies and subsidized their companies, to systematically undercut ours, shuttering our plants, resulting in large parts of our societies being deindustrialized, shipping millions of working and middle-class jobs overseas, and handing control of our critical supply chains to both adversaries and rivals. Deindustrialization was not inevitable. It was a conscious policy choice, a decades-long economic undertaking that stripped our nations of their wealth, of their productive capacity, and of their independence. It was a foolish but voluntary transformation of our economy that left us dependent on others for our needs and dangerously vulnerable to crisis.
Let a few of those phrases sink in. A conscious policy choice, a voluntary transformation of our economy. Actually, it wasn't so voluntary, but I'll get to that in a minute. Now, here's what makes this speech so extraordinary. Rubio wasn't speaking into a vacuum. In her Saturday brief, Barbara reviewed the collection of warmongers and anti-Trumpers who filled that room in Munich. And she reported on the fact that the theme of the entire conference was, quote, under destruction. And it was a full-on attack of Trump's policies in specific and on the concept of national sovereignty in general. But lurking between the lines of the conference report and speeches is this reality. The globalists are no longer in control of the current world dynamic. The conference report says that economic uncertainty is nearly 3 times higher than it was during the 2008 financial crisis. Why? We don't have banks crashing like in 2008, at least not yet. That economic uncertainty comes from the fact that Donald Trump and his team have declared that the 50-year-old post-industrial model is over. Now, reflecting the recognition that the jig is up, European Central Bank head Christine Lagarde titled her speech, Preparing for Geoeconomic Fragmentation. And in it, she warned that a more assertive industrial policy is causing a rise in geopolitical tension and more frequent financial market stress. Now, translated, that means we have to now live in a world that is being reshaped by an assertive American industrial policy, and we who represent the global financier elite are no longer controlling the table. Lagarde signaled that new reality when she warned about the fragility of the European financial system. She said, we must avoid a situation where that stress triggers fire sales of euro-denominated securities in global funding markets, which could hamper the transmission of our monetary policy. Fire sales of euro-denominated securities. Is somebody getting a little nervous? Then she said that the European Central Bank will be expanding its repo facility to bail out bad euro-denominated securities. Why? Because for decades, the Federal Reserve had backstopped European financial markets. That's over, and the U.S. is no longer the lender of last resort for the gambling casino run by the City of London. Now, here's a good reason for you to subscribe to Promethean Action's free newsletter. We've been documenting statements by Treasury Secretary Bessent and the new Fed chair nominee Kevin Warsh, where they've made clear that America's new economic priorities are the physical economy and household incomes, not saving the financial bacon of the international banks. So head on over to our website. The link is in the description. But the fragility of European financial markets is just part of the picture. The real story is that Europe is destroying itself physically. A few days before Munich, the Prime Minister of Belgium delivered a stark message to the European Industry Summit in Antwerp.
Over the past 4 years, announced closures in the European chemical industry increased sixfold, representing a loss of almost 10% of the European chemical production capacity. In countries like ours, Germany, the Netherlands and France, the situation is simply dramatic. We are at the brink of an existential crisis.
Now, where does that existential crisis that he references come from? Here's the killer punch.
The decarbonization of Europe will become synonymous with its deindustrialization and eventually with its poverty and its irrelevance.
There's that word again, deindustrialization. The Belgian Prime Minister is saying the same thing that Marco Rubio said at Munich and that Commerce Secretary Howard Lutnick said at Davos. The globalist system of free trade and green insanity is a failure, and it has gutted the industrial base of the nations that succumb to it. Now, Rubio called it a conscious policy choice. That's the polite version. In 1977, the Council on Foreign Relations spelled it out in much blunter terms. They called it controlled disintegration. And when you hear what they wrote, you'll understand that everything happening in Europe right now and what was happening in the United States was the intended outcome. Now, before we get into the 1977 report itself, let me give you a little historical refresher, especially for those of you who might be new to this channel. After the assassination of William McKinley, the last American system president at the turn of the 20th century, the British Empire launched a project to return the United States to the imperial fold. Part of that project was the founding of the CFR in 1922 as the American arm of the British Round Table. But despite decades of subversion, the United States hung on to some semblance of economic sovereignty and industrial development until the 1970s. That's when the CFR launched their 1980s project,
8 more minutes.
which produced a series of blueprints
Billy Bean
for
will be next.
destroying modern industrial society. One of them was entitled Alternatives to Monetary Disorder, and it let it all hang out. Here's what it said. A degree of controlled disintegration in the world economy is a legitimate objective for the 1980s and may be the most realistic one for a moderate international economic order. Let that sink in. Controlled disintegration, a legitimate objective to achieve their moderate international economic order. Now, when you hear the words moderate international economic order, translate that into the current terms of rules-based order and liberal free trade system, which the Davos and the Munich crowd are trying to save. And the CFR knew exactly what tradition they were dismantling. They cited Alexander Hamilton by name. Here's how the CFR described the ideas which oppose their system. They were eloquently addressed by Hamilton in his Report on Manufactures of 1790, in which he expressed the opposition of American nationalists to their country's assuming the role of a raw materials exporter to Britain. Nationalists feared and opposed two aspects of this role: the tying of American economic development to the British economy and the growing dependence on Britain for goods vital to national defense. Let that sink in. The British Empire has always known that its mortal enemy is the American system. And back in 1977, they called for the controlled disintegration of the world economy to stop it. Now, the mainstream will tell you this is a conspiracy theory, but here it is in black and white, and it's what you have been living through for the last 50 years. And that is what Secretary of State Rubio called out at Munich when he said deindustrialization was a conscious decision. It's why we lost manufacturing in our middle and our working class, and we hollowed out our economy and our society. Europe is still doing it, but the Trump administration has rejected those policies. And by the way, that's why most of us voted for him. So what do these new policies look like in practice? Has President Trump just cobbled together a series of ad hoc policies to try to staunch the economic bleeding? Or do we actually have an administration which knows what the real fight is? Well, look at Trade Ambassador Greer's speech at Davos, entitled The Hamiltonian Economic System That Too Many Have Forgotten. This is the first time since the CFR declared war on the Hamiltonian system that a high-ranking administration official has defended it. Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent summarized administration policy with this statement: economic security is national security. A country does not have sovereignty if we don't have control of our critical minerals, our steel production, and our industrial base. In other words, the end of controlled disintegration. And everything this administration is doing, from tariffs to government support for critical sectors of the economy to bringing $17 trillion in investment into the United States, is the American system in action. Now, here is a remarkable example of how this works. Yesterday, Energy Secretary Chris Wright spoke at a press conference with officials from Valar Atomics.
One of President Trump's boldest proclamations was that this is America. We can build things, we can innovate, we can do things in this country. And in fact, he set out a very bold goal. This is just 12 months ago. He said by the 250th anniversary of our Declaration of Independence, meaning July 4 of this year, we're going to have multiple nuclear reactors critical. People thought that was crazy. 15 months away. We built 2 reactors in 40 or 50 years, yet we're going to have 3 reactors critical by July 4. Today is history. A multi-megawatt next generation nuclear power plant is loaded in the C-17 behind us. We're going to fly it to Utah today, and it will be critical, running all of its nuclear systems by July 4 of this year.
This is amazing what they've done in a short few months. This is the American system, the partnership of the federal government and private industry to get the job done. And it's not just industry. This administration is going directly after the financial oligarchy, which profited from 50 years of controlled disintegration. This week, White House advisor Peter Navarro went on national television and called Jamie Dimon, the CEO of the biggest bank, JP Morgan in America, an SOB.
Jamie, I'm talking to you right now. You, SOB, are the biggest beneficiary of interest rates on credit cards that are up to 30%. You, Jamie, the company you own is the biggest beneficiary. So you come out and act like, oh, you're acting in the public interest, and people don't look behind the hood. That guy is a usurious thief that's hurting the American people. He should shut up until those things come down. We don't need his advice.
Now, what's the issue? The Trump administration is demanding the banks lower interest rates on credit cards from the 20 to 30% range where they are down to 10%. Jamie Dimon's response, it would be an economic disaster. Did you catch that? He's admitting the entire consumer credit system depends on gouging you. That's the financial model that the CFR's controlled disintegration was designed to protect. And now the White House is telling them it's over. Trump isn't just talking about reversing deindustrialization. He's doing it on every front: trade policy, industrial policy, massive flows of investment into critical sectors, both public and private. This is the most comprehensive challenge to the post-1977 controlled disintegration in modern American history. And Marco Rubio's speech at Munich made that clear. This administration knows that deindustrialization was a conscious policy, and now we are embarked on the opposite: reindustrialization, and with it, a society that actually works. The Munich conference was not just a confrontation between the Americans and the Europeans. It was a confrontation between two systems: the imperial system of deliberate controlled disintegration, laid out in 1977, and the American system of economic development. Europe is still clinging to the former, although there's some pushback from countries like Belgium. The Trump administration has consciously chosen the American system and is inviting other nations to join in this rebirth of the fundamental values of Western civilization. This is working. The American system is being restored. But the architects of controlled disintegration aren't going to give up. They're banking on the midterm elections less than 9 months away to stop it. That's why what we do at Promethean Action matters. We make sure that Americans understand the real terms of this fight, not left versus right, but sovereignty versus empire. And if you want to be part of that fight, go to our website and support us.
Okay, we got our two ladies on TikTok today. Billy Bean, 28 minutes, followed by the X2 port.
Subscribe and share. Some of the things we'll cover: the sun and virus, Nancy, Prince Andrew and his connection to the CCP, President Trump, ETs, and the U.S. military preps for battle, and Xi. Could he be a trigger for civil war in China? Well, that would be one way to get rid of one of the number one enemies of the U.S., for sure. So we have this coming in. This is from YouTube Space Weather, formerly Suspicious Observers. A white paper has come in tying the sun to virus outbreaks on the Earth. This is logical. So the sun, during its minimum, when the sun is blocking less cosmic rays, there is an increase of radiation to the Earth. And we know also right now we would be more vulnerable to cosmic rays coming in and increasing viruses on the Earth. I believe the way it works, this increased radiation comes in and it decreases the efficacy of our immune systems. It weakens our immune system from the radiation, and then we are more vulnerable to viruses. Now, we've seen an example of this. Standeo physicists put this out. So we have Africa, the US, and right here we have a small group of islands, Canary Islands. So Standeo was consulted, I believe Larry Taylor contacted him in 2025 regarding an unusual sickness that the people in the Canary Islands was experiencing. Stan, physicist, is an expert also on the sun. And his measurements or his science information about the Canary Islands brought about his statement that the South Atlantic anomaly, a dip in the shield around the Earth, most prominent over South America, the South Atlantic, had spread and split, and the people in the Canary Islands were actually sick from radiation sickness. So radiation sickness has the same symptoms whether you get the radiation from the sun or from a nuclear event. But this white paper also brings out that an increase in radiation to the Earth, which can come from the sun or it can come from cosmic rays, depresses human immune system and brings about also an increase in viruses. We are now experiencing a quiet period from the sun, so that's going on. Take your vitamin C. So let's talk about now Nancy Guthrie. So Nancy, a generous, we know that the reward offered by the FBI yesterday had been up to $102,500. Now a generous donor has donated additional money. So the new reward money for information about Nancy leading to an arrest and conviction is up to $200,000. While some sources are putting out, and I did see some pictures of posters of Nancy going up in Mexico. The Mexican border, I understand, is about 60 miles from her home. But an official statement by the Mexican government said, the Mexican government has received no official request about Nancy Guthrie's disappearance. So that's going on. And we have this. We have about, and we continue to pray for the safe return of Nancy Guthrie and certainly for her family. We have this about Prince Charles. Now, he was arrested yesterday in the UK associated with information coming out in the Epstein files. But it was not about sexual allegations with underage girls, but rather information coming out in the Epstein files that Andrew, in his official role as a trade representative for the UK, had provided secret government information to Epstein. Now it's coming out today that Prince Andrew had ties to the CCP and that he had a startup business in China, and that in 2010 he was negotiating a deal between China and the UAE. And he has made many trips to China, and he regularly sent, and he had a close reported relationship with Xi. And for years, his aides had sent birthday cards to Xi. So that's going on, another area to look at. And also, I was very surprised yesterday. Andrew was arrested early in the morning, 5 or 6 a.m., by the UK police. And I assumed, as many commentators did, that he would go to the police station, be booked in, and then a bail would be set, and he would be released in a couple of hours. Well, it comes out that no, yesterday, the UK police held Andrew in interrogation for 11 hours. They must have a lot of information in their possession for them to base 11 hours of questioning on. So the story regarding Andrew just continues to become more complicated. So that's going on. And we have this. All right. Now, personally, I believe we heard in the past 48 hours that former President Obama had given an interview, and he was asked about ETs. And Obama said, they're real. I haven't seen one. And then that went viral. Then President Trump, in a press gaggle on Air Force One, referred to that statement by former.
Okay, we got Grace Lynn. Welcome. First time in chat. Just be respectful. Thank you. I think you might be right on that one. I think you're right. That could be happening because at the beginning of the show, I showed a photo. Savannah has a black eye. Did you guys see the beginning of the show? I showed a black eye. Okay, Carol. I believe in aliens. We believe in angels and everything else.
President Obama, that Obama had given out classified information. President Trump was implying Obama shouldn't have done that. And then President Trump said, I guess I'll have to save him and release the classified information. Then last night, Thursday night, on Truth Social, President Trump came out and said, yes, he was giving an order to the Department of War, other agencies and departments of the U.S. government to declassify and give to the public any government files regarding ETs and UFOs and extraterrestrial life. So that's going on. And personally, I believe there was probable a coordination between President Trump and former President Obama. For Obama to put that information out, then President Trump comes out, and I believe President Trump wanted to release the information. He just needed the right setup. Rather than President Trump saying, oh, I've decided to release this information, he does it in response to a situation. So that's going on, and we should see that information soon. And now we have this. Iran. Okay, we're going to talk about the U.S. military preps for battle. I have a short prayer today regarding that. So let's get started. So we know Iran. So we have Africa, the Mediterranean Sea. Now, yesterday, we know the Lincoln carrier group is already situated. I believe that's in the Indian Ocean. And we had heard yesterday that the Ford had made its turn around the Strait of Gibraltar and was entering the Mediterranean Sea. Well, Monkey Works said yesterday, Thursday, that it was more likely the Bush that's already in the Mediterranean, because new reports came out late yesterday afternoon that the Ford was just now getting close to the Strait of Gibraltar. So at any rate, we'll have 3 carriers there. Now, I had heard also in the past 2 weeks that the Nimitz was also going to the Middle East. So we'll have to see where is the Nimitz now. But we currently have the Lincoln, we have the Bush, and we have the Ford proceeding. So that's going on.
It's natural to think about how to best support your family as you age. Senior Life Insurance offers a practical.
And we have this. In the past 2 days, we've had 209 flights by refuelers from the U.S. to the Middle East. 209 flights. In other words, the fueler goes and then comes back and then goes back. We know that we currently have stationed in the Middle East up to 40 refuelers. And we have many planes already pre-positioned in Spain and Portugal. Now, Monkey Works also put this out, that one of the reasons the U.S. could be pre-positioning 3 carriers in the Middle East is that the U.S. can launch flights off of the carriers in the event that some nations say you cannot use our airspace to launch a hit on Iran. As I brought up in my last video, the UK yesterday said that the U.S. couldn't use Diego Garcia, possibly, but definitely could not use Fairford base located near London to launch attacks on Iran. So shut up, Keir Starmer.
Hey.
And
shut up.
We have this.
You should have yet.
Yeah. And we have intel balloons up over all of the U.S. and many in South America. And we have this, that we have also a sub-hunter in the Gulf of America. Now, I live on the south coast of Texas, close to the Gulf of America. And for weeks, I've been hearing planes going over, heading toward the Gulf of America. So I'm not surprised that we have sub-hunters that would be P-8 Poseidon out in that area. And we have this. We also have many AWACS, surveillance intel planes that can track other planes and missiles. We now have the largest number of AWACS in the Middle East in history. We also see that the local pizza places around the Pentagon have increased the number of pizzas they sell at night, which is an indicator many Pentagon watchers look at to see if the Pentagon is doing late night planning. So that's going on. And we have this. We have, the UK has closed airspace to the US. We have also that Iran, we know the number of Iranian citizens shot dead by the Iranian government and its military in the past 6 weeks. One good number I had from a reliable source was 60,000. It's now up to 80,000. Now the Iranian government has hit a new low. It is now arresting citizens who have done nothing, but who the Iranian government believes might do something in the future against the Iranian government. It sounds like Minority Report, doesn't it? That movie. And we believe Russia and China do have ships around close to Iran, and they are delivering satellite intel and other counter intel information to the Iranian government. It's now being put forth by military analysts that they believe once the shooting goes hot, that the Russian and Chinese ships will withdraw around the Middle East. Because, as I've stated, it appears that neither the Russian nor Chinese government want to have direct fighting contact against the U.S. And we have this from 2CTV. Yesterday, apparently, Iran is testing jets, and they had a crash of an F-4 near Hamadad. It's possible, in my mind, that that jet could have been sabotaged, as we're seeing sabotage taking place all over Iran, explosions and fires. And we have this. President Trump on Air Force One has said Iran needs to make a deal or bad things will happen. So that's going on. And we have this.
10 minutes, you guys.
Get relief, get alignment, get good posture. This is the Back Hero.
Yes, there's been a crash of a jet in Iran yesterday, a Phantom F-4, allegedly doing training, and the pilot was killed in the crash. So that's going on. Now let's talk about China. So for a long time, I could not figure out how China operated. A good source, Lay's Real Talk, a Chinese expert, brought out that China is ruled by 12 families. Now, this sounds like the setup that we know globally operates with the fallen angels mating with humans, making hybrids, the Nephilim. Out of these, this bloodline comes many ruling families on a global basis, including the Rockefellers and the Rothschilds. It appears that China has 12 Nephilim families ruling China. They're called the Red Families. And from this group come the leaders for the CCP, the Communist Party, the government, and the Chinese military called the People's Liberation Army. Now, what Xi has been doing, Xi is from the 12 ruling families. There's also another ruling class that comes out of the CCP families. This group are called princelings. And out of this group comes the leaders of the Chinese government, some of the military, and some go into government. So we have 12 ruling families. Then we have them leading up the CCP. The CCP ruling families have children. They're then called princelings. These are males who then rule the military and also have seats in the government. Xi is the president of the government, and Xi is the chairman of the CCP. But Xi doesn't control the Chinese military. Now, over the past 2 months, Xi has taken out 8 top generals in the military, including the 2 top generals he took out a few weeks ago, 2 to 3 weeks ago. This apparently was a red line for both the CCP and the military. And Xi has been given a deadline to produce the generals, Zhang Li and Ling Ji. John Shaw is a princeling. So he crossed a family bloodline line also. There's been no official statement of support for 3 weeks now from the CCP nor the military to support Xi. And it's coming out. There are 3 different groups now who are coming out against Xi. We have conservatives, we have reformers, and then this group called Red Princeling. And these, we know, the princelings are the descendants of the leaders of the CCP, but also a direct bloodline to the 12 ruling families. So the conservative group has given an ultimatum to Xi to produce the 2 top generals in 3 months. The reformists and the Red Princelings are saying, no, that's way too much time. Now a critical timeline is in play. And what we have is early in March, there are meetings of the government, CCP, and the military called 2 sessions. And this requires the Chinese military to send more generals to Beijing. Xi is in Beijing with his own private army that is believed to number 10 to 15,000. So now a setup is coming. The military doesn't want to send their generals March 3. For the people designated to go to Beijing, March 3, there has to be a meeting February 25 to 28 of the CCP to pick the people that are going.
About 3 minutes.
So now the Red Princelings, it sounds like, want to generate before February 25.
3 reasons we chose our Big Thick mattress. There's strong edge support, high density foam, and cooling
They want to generate military action in Beijing to take down Xi's private army. It's unknown if Xi's private army would actually fight the PLA, the Chinese military, or not. That's unknown. But we see a pivotal moment in history in China. And that would be for the Chinese military to take out Xi's private army and then remove Xi. So that's going on. And Xi has a tight grip on the Beijing military garrison. Now, the Beijing military garrison is part of the Chinese military. It's believed that the Beijing garrison would not fight against its own military, and that Xi could only stand up his own private army. But the Chinese military doesn't want to engage in a actual battle. So that's going on. Strong voices are calling for the Chinese military to go into Beijing and take down Xi's private army. So that's going on. So Xi is in a position to be falling soon. And we have this. So these decisions have to be made by the CCP and the Chinese military by late February as to how they're going to handle Xi. So that's going on. And now a short prayer for the U.S. military. Father, we pray in the name of Jesus, whom many call Yeshua, for our great U.S. military. We pray, Father, for a manifold increase in the invincibility of our U.S. military in battle. We pray, Father, that you stop all stones from striking the hill of our U.S. military in battle. And we pray, Father, that our U.S. military be led by those who are prayed up in the name of Jesus, whom many call Yeshua. And we pray, Father, for fair weather and no interference from the sun for the U.S. to compromise the U.S. military in battle. And we thank you, God the Father, God the Son, Jesus, whom many call Yeshua, and God the Holy Spirit. I say to my family and friends, remain steady out there, continue to pray. God is in charge and he is on the move. I love you and I'll see you soon.
Okay, that's the first Billy Bean. So we'll go to the 3-hour mark. So we're halfway through the show. We'll do 3 hours and come back tonight. So we got the X2 report coming up, and so far we got one Doug, one Nick, one Q still to come. Thanks, bye. Ah. $31. Yesterday.
And welcome. You're listening to the X22 Report. My name is Dave, and this episode 3844, and today's date is February 19th, 2026. And the title of the episode is Central Bank Mission Has Always Been to Destroy Gold as Money. Fed released fake study on tariffs. Now, let me ask you a question. What if you could do more with your retirement funds than just hope for the best? With My Digital Money, you can build a self-directed IRA that goes beyond the usual, combining Bitcoin, gold, and silver for real peace of mind. Imagine Bitcoin's explosive growth, the steady strength of gold, and silver's wildcard potential all working together in one powerful account. While the market zigzags and headlines keep you guessing, these assets help shield your future from inflation and uncertainty. Why let your future hinge on just one bet? With My Digital Money, you're in control. We allow you to invest in crypto, gold, and silver all under one roof, balancing risk and reward and opening the door to bigger opportunities. Don't settle for ordinary. Build a more balanced, resilient portfolio today so you can retire with confidence. Visit My Digital Money and see how easy it is to diversify and protect your retirement today. That is mydigitalmoney.com, or just click the link in the description. Let's get right into the economic collapse financial news. Now, the deep state, the corrupt politicians, the private West Central Bank, the World Economic Forum, we can see that they're trying to stop any way they possibly can. And right now, we can see there's a group that is suing Trump, saying, oh, we shouldn't be using tariffs. And the Fed just put out a study saying that the people of the country are going to be paying 90% of the tariffs. Now, once again, we've seen things like this before. This is nothing new. And if you go back to the time of COVID, the Lancet put out a paper basically telling you that hydroxychloroquine increased deaths. And again, this was supposed to be the standard, the be-all, end-all of documents. And what we've come to find out is that the data was fake. We saw there was a lot of inconsistencies. It didn't make sense. And all of a sudden, the Lancet paper, they decided to retract it because basically it was put out there to convince everyone that hydroxychloroquine causes death and it doesn't cure COVID. Fast forward to today, we have the Federal Reserve putting out a paper, a study, trying to convince the people that the people of this country are going to pay for the tariffs and you're going to see massive inflation. Now, once again, we know that inflation has been going down. Even when you look at the Fed calculations, the inflation has been going down. Actually, inflation right now, I think with the Atlanta Fed, which we'll be talking about in just a sec, is down around 2%, 1.9%. So right there, that tells you everything you need to know. And we've had Trump's administration come out and bash the study, saying it's absolutely ridiculous, which we'll be talking about in a little bit. It's almost like it reminds me of the entire global warming climate change, where they said the earth is getting warmer, the oceans are basically rising, the polar ice cap, there will be no more ice, there'll be no more snow, you'll never see another snowfall again. Well, they said that 10 years ago. They said that 10 years before that, 10 years before that. And again, what do we come to find out? They've been lying to the people from the very, very beginning. And they lied about wind power. They lied about solar power, where they keep using the term clean energy, because they never tell you anything beyond that. Hey, look, we're just going to use the energy from the sun. They don't tell you it takes a massive amount of oil to keep the windmills lubricated. They don't tell you that the blades are toxic and they really have no idea how to get rid of them. They don't tell you that this doesn't help with energy costs. It actually makes energy a lot more expensive. They didn't tell you all of those things because, again, they were trying to push their agenda. And I think Chris Martz looks at nuclear energy, solar energy, and onshore wind energy, and explains what they actually meant by clean energy, because they only look at one little part of it, not the entire picture. Now, once again, there's nothing wrong with solar energy, wind energy, but I don't think we could just take it and replace the energy that is created by nuclear, by gas, by oil, and say, hey, let's just remove all that and go right on to clean energy, which it's really not clean energy. So again, yes, can we have a mixture? Absolutely. Just like we can have a mixture of cars that are powered by gas and cars that are powered by electric. And you have to remember, electric is generated by what? By oil, by nuclear, by gas. So you're not really getting rid of that. You're just basically pretending that, hey, look, I'm driving an electric car and I'm using electricity, but the electricity comes from someplace. And this is what people kind of forget. But Chris Martz put this out and said the term clean energy is stupid. Why, you ask? Because the term classifies different energy sources as being either dirty or clean, depending solely on their life cycle carbon dioxide emissions. No other criteria are considered. Clean ignores other environmental drawbacks, such as the land footprint and material intensity of different energy sources. And on those scoreboards, renewable fail. Objectively, the cleanest energy source is nuclear. It has the lowest carbon intensity, lowest material intensity, and smallest land footprint. A single 1,000 megawatt nuclear facility occupying 1 square mile of land, operating with a capacity factor of 0.923, can power approximately 770,000 homes over the course of a calendar year. To power the same number of homes as a nuclear power plant,
24.
it would require solar, 4,000 MW of installed power, and 30,000 acres of land, 47 times as much land. Onshore wind, 2,700 MW megawatts of installed power and 86,400 acres of land, 135 times as much land. And these figures don't include the additional space needed for battery storage. None of that sounds very green to me, even if some of the land remains usable, which it does. Nuclear fission is what the West would be scaling up if our nations were governed by serious people who would deregulate it and let the market boom. Without all the compliance regulations, costs would fall like they have in China. I'm not entirely against solar, however. It has its place in the mix, but unless it is being placed on rooftops or is for individual off-grid use, I don't want to see forests felled to build them. My calculations for the figures above are derived from the U.S. Energy Information Administration capacity factor data and U.S. homeowners' average electricity consumption. So yes, they were pushing the idea of wind and solar because, again, their plan was much larger than anyone could ever imagine. Their plan was to have 15-minute cities. The plan was to have depopulation and have the people trapped in those cities. And again, do you really think they care if electric is on or off? Absolutely not. Who is going to be using the other sources of energy? Well, I think we all know it was going to be those individuals that weren't living in the 15-minute cities. So once again, you could see their agenda completely and utterly fell apart. Trump has canceled all of this because he knows the truth. He knows what they were planning to do. And he knows if we're going to be a manufacturing powerhouse, we cannot use wind. We cannot use solar. We need actual energy. And I think this is why most likely his company, True Social,
the real reason Korean women are so skinny and how Hollywood celebs secretly are using it. This is the gel.
They are looking and made a deal with a fusion company that is going to create these smaller nuclear power plants to power data centers, to power certain things. So you could see the direction that we're heading in right now. No, this is not going to be the only company. There's going to be many companies that are going to make these compact reactors, which they could be used to power many different areas. And the footprint is going to be very, very small. Now, the other thing that's very interesting, they keep talking about the Federal Reserve and how it has to be independent. The president can't get involved. Nobody can get involved because, again, they did this on purpose because they didn't want anyone looking into the business. They wanted the central bank to be a separate corporation. Oh, that's right. That's what it is. It's a separate corporation. And they had a different agenda than the people of this country and maybe a president that came in that wasn't part of the entire deep state system, like President Trump. But when you look at other nations and you look across the pond, you could see that Christine Lagarde, which we mentioned yesterday, she is now leaving, even though her term is not up. I do believe she probably sees the writing on the wall. Now, the question is, are they going to leave the EU completely independent? And are they not going to get involved in who is going to actually take over? Collingwood put this out and said, remember how Donald Trump was destroying the foundations of sound monetary policy by pressuring the Fed to lower interest rates, thus bringing into question central bank independence? Remember the press hysteria? So what's going to be the response to the president of one Eurozone nation cooking up a scheme with the French? ECB president for her to resign early to prevent the current French opposition from having a say in who will be the next ECB president in the event that they win the next French presidential election. Doesn't that maybe impinge on central bank independence? Or will Macron get a pass like he did when he ruthlessly and violently put down Gilets Jaunes Democrat protests, or when he threatened to cut off British electricity over a fishing dispute, or when he engaged in anti-vax rhetoric to try to rubbish the AstraZeneca vaccine? I think we know the answer. If you're a member of the club, it's all okay, because anything you do is, by definition, protecting our democracy from those who might want to take our democracy away from us. The French have shown yet again that they should be disqualified from ever holding office at international or supranational institutions. Such positions call for independence, but they always remain agents of French national interest as the French establishment sees them. And this is absolutely true. And you could see that, once again, these individuals, they're installed. The person that's running the ECB is installed. The person that's running the EU is installed. Macron is installed. Starmer is installed. Merz is installed. Sanchez is installed. They're all installed. This is why they have no problem in meddling in the affairs, because once again, they have certain rules, and it's not the same rules that everyone else has. Now, the other thing that's very interesting, here in the United States, we can see the Fed is putting out the idea that before Powell leaves, the Fed might increase rates. Is this going to be a parting gift? Is this to basically push the stock market in a different direction? Because out of Market Watch, the headline is Fed minutes reveal discussion of a possible rate hike if inflation doesn't cool. But the strange thing is that inflation has been cooling. And when you look at the inflation calculation, even the one that the Fed uses, you can see that inflation is cooling compared to what Biden did. Biden raised the inflation up to 9%. When it dropped 2 points, the Fed was like, woo, look at this. Inflation's down to 7 or 6. We can lower the rate. That's ridiculous. Trump has the inflation at 1.92% right now, if you use the Fed calculation. And they're trying to make it seem like, well, we don't know what inflation's going to do. I mean, it's so close to our benchmark that things might go crazy. I mean, it's absolutely ridiculous what they're doing here. But I do believe we understand what they're doing. They're trying to put this out there, and I wouldn't be surprised if Fed Powell tries to raise the rates to probably push the economy into a completely different direction and maybe have the market go a little bit crazy. But we'll have to see how this all plays out. But the other thing that's very interesting is that EJ Antonio PhD put this out and said, hey, you know what's interesting? We've all seen the headlines about those miracle weight loss shots, but the 2026 data is officially in, and it's a wake-up call. A major analysis revealed that once people stop the injections, they regain an average of 60% of their weight within a year. Even worse, most of the gain is pure fat, but the muscle they lost stays gone, leaving them with a crashed metabolism and a body that's functionally older than when they started. That's why I'm obsessed with today's sponsor, GLP-1 Elevate. Instead of using needles to override my system, it uses clinically studied plant-based ingredients like metabolate to help my body naturally boost its own hunger control signals. I get the same fullness and fewer cravings, but without the scary side effects or the metabolic rebound. It supports my goals while protecting my muscles so I can actually keep the results for good. To celebrate Valentine's Day, get 50% off GLP-1 Elevate at trimwithx22.com. Every order includes a complete support bundle with a free VIP coaching for life, a 60-day money-back guarantee, and free express shipping on subscriptions. Head over to trimwithx22.com now to claim your 50% discount before it expires, or just click the link in the description. No hire, no fire. The pay premium for job changers varies considerably between industries, but average premium has now fallen to new low in the data series, which goes back to the 20s. Peter Sayong responded to this and says, pay jump for quitters returns to pre-COVID. The question is, are we in the dreaded no hire, no fire job market, or are the millions who quit during COVID finally back in the job market? Then he says, longer view, anything above 4 is decent. We're at 4.1. And this is the 12-month moving average of unweighted meridian hourly wage growth. And basically what we're seeing right now is as Trump deports the illegals, it is opening up a lot of jobs, which means a lot of people now who are sitting on the sidelines, they're going back to those jobs. And we're going to see more and more of these jobs. Just like when you look at the rental market, rents have gone down dramatically. Why? Because Trump has been deporting the illegals. Wall Street Maverick put this out and said, listen, look at all these different articles that they put out. Apartment rental prices decrease in Knoxville. Apartment rents drop further with vacancies at record high. So basically, let's see. The deep state players, they were placing illegals into rentals. The government was paying for these rentals, and they kept raising the rates because, once again, if the government is involved, this is what happens. Now that Trump is deporting all of these people and the government is no longer paying, what happens? Well, it spurs competition. And now they want people to take these apartments because now they don't have the money coming in. So what are they going to do? They're going to lower the price. Wall Street Maverick says none of them mention deportations as a factor in what is causing this trend. Trump has deported, or they have self-deported, over 2.5 million illegal aliens. And that's pretty much why this is all happening. But again, they really don't want to mention this. Just like they don't want to mention how all the people from Mexico and other Latin American countries, they come into this country and they send the currency outside of this country and into their countries. And what's very interesting is that there are no remittances taxes. So basically, they are funding their countries from the United States. This looks like a very interesting pattern because isn't this what the Federal Reserve is doing? Isn't this what the deep state players are doing? They're taking the money from this country, sending it over to other countries and funding those countries, funding those social programs in many other countries. We have these individuals that are working here, sending money to their country, and there's no taxes whatsoever. Don't you find that odd? Why wouldn't there be a tax on people sending money out of this country, all the remittances? There should be at least 50% because they're taxing everyone here in the United States. Why aren't they taxing these people? Because, again, this is by design. That's why. If you look at the central bank model, the model is to
let this soft mineral melt in your mouth to rebuild your gums and teeth and never need a dentist again. People are fixing their receding gums, decaying teeth, gingivitis, and tooth infections all by letting
move everything out of this country, not keep everything in this country. And what's very interesting, I think Danny Nez pretty much sums it all up when we look at inflation and we go back to 1971. Because when we go back to 1971, we know that once we came off the gold standard, the value of the currency continually declined. And they didn't want anyone looking at gold. They wanted everyone looking at the pieces of paper. And what happened was, since that value, the value of the Federal Reserve note, which that's exactly what it is and was, it kept devaluing. So they had to move the manufacturing companies and other things out of this country. Now, those businesses that couldn't be moved out of this country, well, they had a major problem. And that's why they brought in cheaper and cheaper labor to try to counter all of this. But again, it didn't really work. And what did you see? Well, all those manufacturers that produce clothing, that produce TVs, that can produce computers or toys or anything like that, they were produced or manufactured out in a country where people got pennies on the dollar, very, very cheap labor. And then they brought it back to this country with no tariffs whatsoever. So this way, people would be happy. Oh, look, the TV went down in price. Now, of course, yes, their production costs go down, manufacturing gets more streamlined. But again, as the value of the currency declines, you needed a way to manufacture cheaper and cheaper and cheaper products. And that's why you see TVs, well, they're down by 98%, computers are down by 75%, toys down by 74%, and so forth and so on. Look at all the things that couldn't be shipped out of this country. And yes, the government, yes, is involved in a lot of these. When you look at hospital services, it's up 275%. College tuition, 196%. Childcare, up 185%. Medical care, up 129%. Housing, up 111%. Food, up 104%. Ask yourself a simple question. Why? Because the value of the currency continually declines. So basically, the things that you need, the prices went up. The things that you want, like TVs, computers, TVs, and things like that, dropped. So think about that for a second. So basically, the things that you actually really need, the prices went up because they couldn't move them out of this country. And that tells you everything you need to know. And like we said from the very, very beginning with that headline from Market Watch, it seems that E.J. Antonio, PhD, pretty much counters that entire argument and says, and now it's Atlanta Fed's turn. Inflation expectations plunged to 1.9%, now below the 2% target and the lowest level since 2020. So much for the, well, tariffs are going to create inflation. So the question is, why do they say inflation is heating up? Because again, they're trying to put a narrative out there and they're trying to convince people that it's getting worse. But people are realizing things have leveled off and we're not seeing the inflation that we saw before. Now, the inflation that they're talking about, that people have experienced, came from Biden/Obama administration. Because when you saw inflation at 4%, 7%, 9%, then coming down the other way, 6%, 3%,
10
you
minutes,
have to
guys.
add all that
Then
up.
we'll be doing
That's the inflation.
all the 10, 15
It's
minute
cumulative.
ones
That's
for an
why
hour.
when Trump came into
the
office,
shorts.
inflation was ridiculous
Got an
and
hour
people
left.
noticed it and they tried to shift that onto Trump. But the numbers aren't showing that. Yes, when you go to the store, you're experiencing what Biden/Obama did, what the Fed did. And this is why they had to come out with this article. And it's a study from the Federal Reserve, the New York Federal Reserve. And it says you're paying 90% of Trump's tariffs. That's the headline from the Wall Street Journal. From the Federal Reserve study, it's letting everyone know that American businesses and consumers are shouldering the 90% of the cost of Trump's tariffs. So they put this out and they're trying to convince everyone you're paying for all of this. Now, once again, is this a study that is nonpartisan or is it partisan? Well, I think we know the answer to that question. And Kevin Hassett said the following: the people associated with this paper should presumably be disciplined because what they've done is they put out a conclusion which has created a lot of news that highly partisan based on analysis that wouldn't be accepted on a first semester econ class. And basically, he breaks it down. And he says all these things aren't true in what they're saying. They looked at one little part of it, and that is it. So from his perspective, the study is fake or fundamentally flawed because it ignores broader economic dynamics and positive outcomes from the tariffs. Specifically, he criticizes the authors for overlooking key aspects of how the duties worked by narrowly focusing on import prices changes while failing to account for the upward impact on wages and benefits that U.S. companies see by bringing more production onshore. He claimed the tariffs have led to real-world benefits that contradict the paper's conclusions, including falling consumer prices, lower inflation rates, declining import prices, and an average real wage increase of $1,400 for Americans. Hassett argued that if the study claim of 90% of tariff costs being borne by U.S. firms and consumers were accurate, consumers couldn't have been made better off by the tariffs, which he says is disproven by these empirical improvements in living standards. He implied the analysis is partisan and substandard, suggesting it was poorly vetted before publication. For context, the New York Fed study itself uses U.S. import data through November 2025 to regress changes in foreign export prices, proxied by unit values excluding tariffs on tariff rate changes, controlling for product and country-specific factors. It concludes that U.S. importers bore about 86 to 94% of the cost via higher prices, with foreign exporters absorbing only 6 to 14% alongside supply chain shifts, like reducing imports from China. Hassett's critique centers on the methodology being too limited, as it doesn't incorporate macroeconomic effects like domestic job and wage growth from reshoring. And that's absolutely true. And once again, this reminds me of the Lancet paper when they put it out saying that, hey, we collected all the data and hydroxychloroquine causes more deaths than it helps the people. And then people started to look at the paper and go, whoa, wait a minute. What did you do here? This is all fake data. What is this? This is not true. You skewed everything. And you know what the Lancet did? They retracted it. What do you think is going to happen to this paper? In the end, people are going to call it all out, just like it's being called out right now, and they're going to backtrack on all of this. And you have to remember, the central bank is panicking right now because the Trump administration is doing what? They're building a system that is going to compete against the central bank. The central bank doesn't like other systems competing against it. It doesn't like any type of money competing with the paper currency. This is why, for a very long time, they've been just trying, with the best of their ability, to destroy gold from the very, very beginning. This is what they've been trying to do. And Alistair McLeod put this out and says, and I'm going to read part of it. The plan was to kill off gold as money. This was their entire mission since we came off the gold standard.
They're gone.
Following the inflationary 70s, which almost destroyed the post-1971 dollar-based fiat currency system, there can be little doubt that the deep thinkers in the U.S. Treasury thought long and hard as to how to drive inflation out of the economy while promoting the dollar to kill off gold as money. The solution chosen came in three distinct policies. The first and most obvious was to reform the financial system so that the banks would wrest control of financial securities from the brokerage industry. This resulted in London's Big Bang, implemented by the Thatcher government in the mid-'80s at the U.S. Treasury's behest. A capital-starved securities industry would become turbocharged by bank finance, ensuring a perpetual bull market in financial asset values, including government debt, and ensuring everlasting demand for a dollar.
The real reason Korean women are so skinny and how Hollywood celebs secretly are using it. This is
Chico.
The second was to reform statistical calculation for key economic indicators, such as consumer price inflation and jobless figures, giving a measure of government control over them to create the illusion of currency stability. Not only was the indexation of cost of pensions and welfare thereby contained, but interest rates were permitted to be lower than they would otherwise be. All economic statistics are produced by government agencies who control this information. The third was to sanction and encourage derivative markets to expand, and by doing so, divert speculative demand from physical markets for gold. This was to prevent gold prices from being driven higher, threatening the status of the dollar as a medium of exchange. It was the basis of the massive expansion of the gold trading on the LBMA and of gold futures under the control of the large U.S. banks, which would occasionally act as agents for the Exchange Stabilization Fund. So those were the three ways that they did this, and you could see that they're still doing it. Because again, the banks were all in on this. The government calculations were all in on this. This is why Trump said, you know something? I'm going to put my own guy in the BLS because I'm looking at the numbers and they're completely fake. This is why I do believe Trump has been calling out the Fed and saying the models are all wrong. Because again, their models do what? They support the private Western Central Bank. They do not support sound money. They do not support the people of this country. They don't support a sound economic system. They support a central bank system. That's what it does. And this is what Trump is breaking down every single day. And this is why they're trying to stop him. They're trying to stop him by bringing the tariff case to the Supreme Court. They're suing. They're trying to stop him by putting out these bogus studies. They're out there trying to do whatever they possibly can to try to stop what he's doing, because they know in the end, when his system's up and running and it competes against the Fed, the Fed is screwed, which means their entire system, the entire central bank deep state system, disappears. Because again, once we have an income-based system, we don't need a borrowing system. And we don't need to steal the wealth of the people. And every day you can see that Trump is building upon this. He put this out on Truth. He said, the United States trade deficit has been reduced by 78% because of the tariffs being charged to other companies and countries. It will go into positive territory during this year for the first time in many decades. Thank you for your attention to this matter. Isn't that interesting? It's going to go into the positive territory because of the income generating machine. Basically, as it gets stronger and stronger and stronger, the central bank is going to get weaker and weaker and weaker. And soon, Trump is going to show the people what real money looks like, what a real economic system looks like, what an income-based economic system looks like. And when you compare this to the fiat currency, which is backed by nothing, that loses value every single day. Actually, it's lost 3,000% of its value. When you look at the borrowing system compared to the, people are going to see the difference between all of it. And once people get a little bit of a taste of it, they're never, ever going to want to go back. The central bank days, they are numbered. Soon, it will cease to exist the way we know it today. Listen, everyone. Thanks a lot for listening. Be well, be safe, and especially.
All right, we got Billy Bean, the first one out, an X2 report from yesterday out. And earlier we did some other videos. Now we can do an hour of the shorts and the regular videos. I'll be back at 6. So he didn't go, he didn't stay in jail very long, you guys.
File for you, so you don't have to miss a moment. You've got better things to do than taxes. Have a local TurboTax expert file for you.
Bombshell arrest of former Prince Andrew. He is out of jail this morning, but police in Great Britain are searching a home where the senior royal once lived. The investigation has rocked Britain and the royal family itself. Nearly every front page in the country showed the same photo of the former prince slouched in the back of a Land Rover after being released from custody. The investigation is centered on confidential government information that Andrew may have shared with Jeffrey Epstein while serving as a trade envoy for the British government, and not on sexual impropriety. Andrew's brother, King Charles, has said the law must take its course, but studiously ignored questions when appearing at London Fashion Week.
Afternoon, Your What's Majesty. Your reaction to your brother's arrest, sir? Sir, what's your reaction to your brother's arrest?
Now, this is the first time since the 17th century a member of the royal family's been arrested, and the first time the sibling of a reigning monarch has been arrested since 1554.
And get to some breaking news that is happening as we speak in the United Kingdom, where it is on its way towards lunchtime on a Thursday. The reports are that...
Okay, we're going to go on to a different... Oh. All right, we got the guy at TikTok coming up 6 minutes. What do you guys think about this? This one here.
HD for EPEC. It's late at night here in California, almost midnight. And I wanted to let folks know, I kind of thought about this quite a bit, and it was verified. This coming Tuesday, today's Thursday, the 19th, almost midnight, turning it into the Friday, the 20th, here in a little bit. But on Tuesday of next week, President Trump is going to give his State of the Union. The Democrats are signaling, and I kind of knew that this was going to happen, but I'm not taking credit for it. I want you to watch the State of the Union, because what's going to happen is President Trump is going to be, ladies and gentlemen, how the caller comes, ladies and gentlemen, the President of the United States. And then everybody stands up, and he walks down the aisle, and takes his place at the podium right in front of the Speaker of the House's seat, and gives a State of the Union. It depends on when they do it. I think one of two things is going to happen. Number one, none of the Democrats, none of them, are going to show up at all in that joint session for his State of the Union. Or when he walks down the aisle, shaking hands with all the Republicans and everybody, and he takes his position at the podium there in what's called the well of the House, okay? Then all the Democrats will walk out. That's what they're talking about. They're going to walk out of the State of the Union. I've been watching, well, let me put it to you this way. I'm the founder of EPAC, Ensure the Preservation of America and our Constitution. I've studied Marxist political warfare for the better part of a decade. What we're witnessing right now is the members of Congress called Democrats. They call themselves Democrats. They no longer are Democrats. Every single one of them is a Marxist. And now these Marxists are going to disrespect or ignore President Trump's State of the Union. This is war, make no mistake. It is not a conventional war. However, Marxist political warfare or political warfare is an asymmetric, unconventional type of warfare where they use ideological subversion and active measures to subvert your perspective on who you are as a citizen of this country.
Tuesday.
Your values, they subvert. I mean, they subvert it. They want to flop it over, literally destroy your understanding of who you are as a citizen, your understanding and perspective and definition of who you are as a person and your values, and basically the system we have, this nation's system that we live under. They want to subvert it. They want to destroy it. That's how asymmetric, unconventional warfare is waged. I'm an authority on that, or at least educated. I can't really declare that because no one has declared it but me. So I really can't declare it. I can't use that term, an authority. I'm educated in asymmetric, unconventional political warfare. But now it's going conventional. That's a whole nother story. Watch the State of the Union. It starts basically, will be at 9 p.m. Washington, D.C. time, or here in California, it'll be 6 p.m. Watch what happens. This is so disrespectful that it's never happened before in history, ever. These people, and here's the interesting point that I want folks to understand. I've done a little bit of research about this, about the hatred they have for Donald Trump, and you and I, who support him or who have voted for him. Their hatred is so deep-seated that what has happened, it is actually extinguished, destroyed. I guess that's the best words I can come up with. It is literally destroyed, extinguished their ability for rational thought. They can no longer think or act rationally. This hatred is so deep-seated. Many people call that mentally ill. It is a psychosis of immense proportion, and they become sociopaths. Virtually, they've turned into sociopaths. I'm anxious to see how this plays out. Watch the State of the Union this coming Tuesday evening. You will witness something.
Yep, we'll be there. Yep, we'll go on at 8 o'clock on Tuesday night. So, yep, he does a good job. Yep, gonna be interesting.
Housing situation that would keep her
3
safe.
minutes.
And the place is an absolute nightmare. The best that they've been able to do is throw her in solitary for weeks at a time, where she's kept awake 24/7 under fluorescent lighting. She has been sleeping on an inch thick mattress. And it wasn't until just a few months ago, after the media really decided to put pressure on officials in Colorado and what was going on inside of the Colorado Department of Corrections, including with the Civil Rights Division looking at some of the facilities and what was going on, that they decided they could find a 2-inch mattress for Tina to sleep on, despite ignoring her medical requests, despite never allowing her to see a doctor, blowing off everything. In this most recent assault on her, Steve, there were officials in La Vista that refused to even acknowledge that she was injured. She was showing them her bruises from the event because it was being spun against her as if she were the aggressor. And they did nothing. They didn't refer her to medical for an evaluation. They refused to document it. They walked away and looked the other way. So, I mean, this is the everyday situation that Tina Peters has been facing. There are other inmates in there who get written up and have their iPads or their tablets taken away simply because they yell "Free Tina Peters" across the yard, or they show some sign of solidarity, recognizing the ordeal that she has been going through. It's obscene what she's dealing with on a daily basis. Tina Peters does not belong there, and the travesty of justice that has allowed her to stay there despite meeting all state criteria for bond on appeal, despite being a first-time nonviolent offender who has an excellent chance of her charges being reversed and her sentence being overturned on appeal, including this most recent hearing that raised a plethora of extremely concerning issues that should together constitute nothing but a mistrial. Tina Peters needs to go free. She's living in absolute hell. She is a political prisoner, and she doesn't belong with these people. She is in danger every single day that she is in there. She continues to get threats in the mail. She complains about it to the prison, threats that I've seen many of them. They threaten her with murder, with violence, with rape. They wish death upon her. And these recent incidents have led to kind of a precedent to be set within the facility where you can go after Tina Peters and nothing will really happen to you.
Okay, latest on Tina Peters. Hey, Samantha, we did the X2 and Billy and other shorts, and we're going to go 3-hour mark. Come back at 6. We got Doug video. Under 18.
McConnell has been taken over alien.
Saw where Mitch McConnell was blocking the SAVE Act this morning. I think it's partially just out of meanness. He doesn't like Trump.
Little aliens are driving his body. Welcome to Doug in Exile as we hit the news.
Whoa.
Exchange with Trump talking about Barack Obama spilling details when Barack Obama said aliens are real. He said that's classified.
Something that got a lot of attention this week. Barack Obama said that aliens are real. Yeah. Have you seen any evidence of non-human visitors to Earth.
Well, he gave classified information. He's not supposed to be doing that.
He gave out classified information. He's not supposed to be doing that. He's not president anymore. He can't do that. Well, this confirmed that the government has something. And I told you guys yesterday on the live show, and we'll do another live one today at 5 o'clock. 5 p.m. Central. If you guys have subscribed, then you'll get a notification where we have a lot of fun together for a 1-hour show. I think this is a huge distraction because we need to focus on Trump's economy, and there's nothing more fascinating in American consciousness for the last 40 years than to talk about aliens and a government cover-up. So I'm just saying this is bad marketing. This is regardless of whether if you think aliens are real or not, or you believe the conspiracy. I tend not to believe in any of it. I'm giving you guys my bias, and I always welcome other people to disagree. You'll never hear me tell you, guys, what's really out there? What are they hiding from us all? Instead, I'm pretty happy. I am not ever terrified of what I might learn. So I don't have any skin in the game, whether if aliens are real or not. I suspect they are not real whatsoever. And the reason why our government has been involved in detecting aliens, number one, is it's a government's due diligence to say, is there intelligent life? Do they have tech that we can use in our military and in our government? That's just due diligence, even if it's ridiculous. Look, I don't care if there's such a thing as ghosts and leprechauns. If there's any kind of a chance that they're real, I expect my government to be on top of it. Is there a unicorn? Look it up. I want them investigating it. So here's Caroline Leavitt with the big announcement today. Out of this world news from President Trump. This is just insane. I am in shock and laughing and think it's amazing. This is a Trump post. Based on the tremendous interest shown, I will be directing the Secretary of War, that is Pete Hegseth, and other relevant departments and agencies to begin the process of identifying and releasing government files related to alien and extraterrestrial life. Unidentified aerial phenomena, that's UAPs, and unidentified flying objects, UFOs, and any and all other information connected to these highly complex but extremely interesting and important matters. God bless America. There you go. He's going to release the files. And of course, the internet instantly responds. I'll show you the hilarious responses. This is Michael Schellenberger. There's strong congressional support for transparency. This is Rep. Nancy Mace tonight. President Trump is directing full disclosure of UAP and UFO files in October. I wrote to DOD, CIA, NSA, and DNI demanding exactly that. The truth belongs to the American people. The truth belongs to the American. They're going to show you all this fuzzy footage. The biggest, weirdest claim is that we have biological information. And I'm only saying if these files haven't been released yet, then why does the entire public, largely about half of the public, probably 75%, believe in alien life? So if they're trying to cover it up, to pull one over on you, that's my position. They're doing a terrible job. You know what I mean? That's my beef with all conspiracies is conspiracies keep going, they don't want you to know. And I go, actually, I think they don't want to terrify the living daylights out of you with how little they do know. So they're going to release a bunch of half-truths, half-knowledge, and then the human mind gets to fill in the gaps, and everyone's going to go completely nuts, in my view. And next, a word from our sponsor, Chapter. And you guys have been calling Chapter. Now, this is not UFO speculation. These are actual facts. Chapter saved my audience $1 million last year, and I have a goal with Chapter, partnering with them, to save you, my audience, $10 million this year on your Medicare plans. And I'm already getting positive feedback for the people who have called this number. They told me yesterday and the day before as I started these ads again, they're going, Doug, thank you. Chapter was a huge help. And part of what I love about Chapter is how well they treat my audience. So you're going to call the number on this screen, helps this channel out too. But Chapters, we are here to help you navigate something very confusing, especially if you're about to turn 65 and you're about to select a program, you don't know anything about it. They're your information source. And it's not half-truths. It's all truth. You can call 631-961-8696. That link is in the description. That phone number is in the description. And it's the first pinned comment. That's 631-961-8696. Medicare does not need to seem so alien to you. Now the internet is responding to Trump's release of the, oh man, these are funny memes, guys. I'm going to cover all, this is pure entertainment. Remember when they released the Epstein files, when Pam Bondi first gave the influencers the binders? Now they replaced the binders, the influencers, with alien faces, and they say that they have a binder with the alien files. So they're implying our government is going to give you the equivalent to those Epstein files, which is half-truths and incomplete documents. I'm going to get back to more alien stuff, but this is just in. As chairman of the Senate Rules Committee, Mitch McConnell, or should I say his handlers, are stalling the Save America Act by refusing to schedule it, effectively blocking the bill despite GOP support.
He's blocking the SAVE Act. And, or is he? Is it him or a staff member? Because, as you know, he's a lot like Joe Biden was in his last few days in office.
I don't know how true that is, but look at this. This is old video footage of Mitch McConnell largely just repeating the words of his handlers. And I propose that he might have gotten taken over by an alien in this clip. This is from last year.
Cooperation and a string of
There he goes. The volume's very low, but he basically had a freeze up. And this guy's in charge of the rules for the SAVE Act. Is he okay? Now the handlers all come in. Tell him what to say. Do you have something to say? Do you want to say anything else? Yeah. Okay. And then he just walks off. I don't believe in age discrimination. I don't think he should step down because he's old. I think he should step down because he's incompetent, because he's clearly not capable, right? There's more. Mitch McConnell confirmed he's voting no on the SAVE Act. He's 83 years old and is so cognitively impaired he couldn't even answer if he's running for election in 2026. This is another clip from last year. And just watch this interaction.
okay.
Senator, you're up for election in 3 short years. What are your thoughts on that?
I'm sorry, I had a hard time hearing you.
That's okay. What are your thoughts on running for re-election in 2026?
What are my thoughts about what?
Running for re-election in 2026.
That's
Aliens.
Did you hear the question, Senator? Running for re-election in 2026?
Yes.
All right, I'm sorry, you all. We're going to need a minute. Senator Benny.
Yep. Head outside, sorry. Come with us. Okay.
Somebody else?
Goodbye, everybody. Are you running for, that's not a tough question. Are you running in 2026? He is not running, thankfully. But this is the guy who said he's going to vote no on the SAVE Act. This is exactly like Biden, the zombie. Biden had a panel of people doing all of his work for him, including running the auto pen. Remember in Lord of the Rings with Wormtongue and Theoden? Wormtongue is saying, don't trouble Theoden anymore. They all have their handlers speaking for them. I think maybe the aliens are already here.
The SAVE Act is stopped because Mitch McConnell. And he's got a staffer that's running his show, not him.
But wait, there's more from the internet. Now we're going to get back into the internet's response to Trump releasing alien files. Here's the meme. Trump handling the Epstein issue. He's going no. And then exposing the alien issue. He says yes. And I'm in opposition to this idea of releasing these files because I think you thought Epstein sucked the air out of the room and got everyone's attention. Wait till you start releasing UFO talk from the government. So if Epstein files is a huge distraction on the Trump agenda, to a point that he called it a hoax, and we're not going to talk about the Trump economy. Wait till you release on the American public 6 months of parsing through the government's alien files. You know, we have this wreckage, that wreckage. Do we have biological data? And everyone speculates. The conspiracy theorists go nuts. 100%. Now, this one's funny. I'm still going to cover the news, guys. Just because I oppose this doesn't mean I'm not going to cover it, because this is legitimately funny. He says, here's the first file, and look at all the redactions. So this is going to already be, and then Thomas Massey is going to come out and say, release all of the UFO files. They're so heavily redacted. We have to fire Pam Bondi. She's covering for the alien invasion of the Earth. I can tell you already, guys, I hate to say it. I'm saying it now, and I'm the only YouTuber saying this, but I'm calling it, and I'm probably right. They're going to redact stuff to protect sources, and the conspiracy theorists are going to say that Pam Bondi is trying to cover up for these guys. This guy says, not in the Epstein files. And he has a picture of the Gorn from Star Trek. Not in the Epstein files is this lizard alien that James Thelonious Kirk from Star Trek fought. There's more. This is the general sentiment. They're basically tying the UFO files to the botched release of the Epstein files. Here's Tony Parisi. Oh, now that is a distraction from the Epstein files. So now they're saying the UFO files are only to distract from the Epstein files. Do you see how all of our minds are just looking for one little evidence to confirm our priors, to confirm what we already believe? And then they just run wild with it, okay? And I'm only interested in the marketing and in Republicans winning in 2026. I want to know, how does releasing alien files help Republicans win in 2026 to save the country? You got to make that case for me in the chat below, my people. Here's Marco Rubio with an alien on his lap. Senator Rubio realizes he has to declassify the UFO files. So this is how the internet is responding. This was an interesting fact. This is Blair White, the trans right-wing who knows what, blah, blah, says 10 days before JFK was assassinated, he demanded the CIA brief him on UFOs. So here's the letter, all kinds of redactions scribbled out. JFK demanded we release the UFO files, or asked him to be briefed, and he was assassinated 10 days later. Coincidence? We don't think so. Here's Laura Trump on the issue. I found this very interesting too. Watch this.
Another thing I believe I heard on your podcast that you've discussed with the president is UFOs. Do you think that he's about to make an announcement about UFOs? Because President Obama was just on a podcast talking about how he believes in UFOs and hinting that he saw something when he was president.
Well, I said this in my podcast too. What's funny is we've kind of asked my father-in-law about this, because we're like, well, what do you know? Because Miranda, we all want to know about the UFOs, or we all want to know.
I think this is really funny too, because that's what happens when your dad becomes the president. The first thing you do when he sits down is you go, Dad, come on. You know now, you have the dossier, the official government. There's no higher. They can't keep the knowledge from you. Are there aliens, is what they asked.
On, and he played a little coy with us. And so that, of course, led us to believe, Eric and I were like, oh my gosh, if he won't even like fully tell us.
Eric Trump and Laura Trump confirmed Trump was playing coy, wouldn't fully tell them. They know that he's not saying something. So he knew better than to release the classified information that Barack Obama did, which is that the presidents before all knew that you were not to confirm that they have alien evidence. That's me filling in the gaps, guys. I could be wrong, but if there was no alien, Trump would flat out say, look, there's nothing there. I looked, there's nothing there. Instead, there's something there. So he has to tell everyone, I'm not allowed to tell.
Maybe there's more to it. And then I have just heard kind of around that, I think he's actually said, I think my father-in-law's actually said it, that there is some speech that he has that I guess at the right time, and I don't know when the right time is, he's going to break out and talk about, and it has to do with maybe some sort of extraterrestrial life, so to speak. I just, I look at things from the perspective of the vastness of our universe. And I'm a kind of a numbers person. I don't get nervous flying because the odds are very much in your favor flying. The odds that anything will happen to you are far greater in a car than they ever will be in an airplane. But I'm also looking at the odds in terms of how much is out there in the universe. And it would be pretty wild to think that the only spot where there was any sort of life in the entire universe was here on Earth.
Those numbers don't add up. I don't want to do a big biblical apologetics or speak about the impossibility of evolution, of materials being able to assemble and create a replicating cell. You have to have a replicating life to be able to have evolution start evolving life. It's impossible. It is absolutely impossible. For it to happen twice, I don't care how big the universe is, it's impossible to happen once. So if there is alien life out there, God created it. Or Satan twisted something to make a knockoff, weird, dark version of life. But obviously, we're all speculating. Obviously, no one knows. I believe the American people have a right to know. If our government knows something, spill the beans, let us know. The thought is that the government knows, and their agenda would be they have been reverse engineering the tech, because for an alien to get here would be amazing. And it would take amazing tech, and we're trying to reverse engineer it. So we don't want to reveal those secrets because we want the advantage of this tech, say, to use against China instead of China having the tech. So those are stories, guys. This is fiction. It's fiction until I see the video, until I see conclusive evidence, including a crash ship. I would love to see a crash ship. Release the photos of the actual ship or organic matter. And until then, I remain skeptical, but we're going to still have a lot of fun with this. I'm Doug in exile. What do you think? Let me know in the chat below. Don't forget to call chapter. Link in the description.
Okay, the last half hour, we'll do the short videos. We'll save the rest for later. $3 minutes.
Horrible, unfathomable things that they are forcing into our feed. I mean, I don't know if you've seen it on TikTok, but it's all over the place. Just horrible things, uncensored, just showing them, right? And you're telling me that this isn't a coincidence? Like, at this time, right now, on February 17th, there's a convergence of 7 different calendars, all bringing a heightened experience. So we're talking like the Jewish calendar's got a new moon, the Christian calendar's got Lent, the Muslim calendar's got Ramadan, Chinese New Year, Tibetan New Year, the birthday of the founder of Nichiren Buddhism, and also the Mayan calendar has 13 Kame, which is supposed to be one of the most powerful moments or days of the entire calendar, where energies are heightened and the veil between the spiritual realm and the physical realm is thinner. Are you telling me that this is not intentional? And then you couple all of that on the same day with the solar eclipse. Now, not only that, but 4 days later, 3 days later, 4 days later, something like that, on February 20th, there is the Saturn-Neptune conjunction at 0 degrees Aries, which is the alpha point and the beginning point of the entire zodiac. The last time we were here, humans were hunter-gatherers moving into agriculture. Last time this happened, it was the beginning of civilization. And you're telling me that they're not pumping all of this toxic vibration into the airwaves for a reason. I'm telling you, the reason why they are doing it is to lock the vibration of humanity into a lower consciousness for the next epoch. Think about it. Don't take the bait. Don't take the bait. Right now, focus on being calm and still. Turn off your social media, like from the 17th to the 20th. Don't let them feed you what they're trying to feed you. You can take 3 days off. The world's not going to explode. Nothing's going to go wrong. Like, chill for 3 or 4 days. Center, lock in. Focus on what you want for yourself, for your family, for your children, for the world. Don't focus on what they're trying to feed you. It's a distraction. It's a distraction, and your power. Look, you're a child of the light. We are children of light. We are here to call in the Divine Mother to heal humanity through compassion, cooperation, nonviolence, and love. If you're with me, you believe that food, clean water, shelter, healthcare, and education are basic human rights. If you are with me, then we believe that Mother Earth is a living, breathing, conscious being, and we are here to protect her and her inhabitants by raising our vibration and ultimately the vibration of all of humanity. We are the Legion of the Children of Light, and we are here to catalyze the force of light, the force of God, the force of divine, higher vibrational beings onto this planet. You know that it's right. Don't focus on the darkness, focus on light. Let's go.
Okay, that guy was good there on TikTok. The next two short ones are Favorite Lady. Just came out with a new one, as a one this morning. This one's 5 minutes almost.
When is this going to happen? On the other side of this, Britain has arrested Prince Andrew for his part in the Epstein files. They can't get him on the SEX part, but they can get him on something else. Meanwhile, in the U.S., there's crickets on any arrests that are going on. A Mexican journalist last night was on Newsmax, and he was sent an email a couple of years ago from someone who said that he had 5 videos of you put it together, it's 1 + 2, and they add the word some to that was going on with very popular people on Epstein Island, with Epstein, with underage minors. He has the videos. He was a staffer at that ranch, at the Epstein ranch. He asked for 1 Bitcoin. At that time, the Mexican journalist said that it was only $6,500. And the FBI was turned over. They gave all this evidence, all these emails and stuff. Not evidence, sorry. They gave the email to the FBI, who didn't follow up and didn't give the guy $6,500. The guy also said there are 2 women not eaten, but that had passed away because there was some very violent, rough, rhymes with speddish, but put an F in front of it. I'm going to say Rex, but y'all know what I'm saying, going on. And so they are supposedly on that property. And he said, if you dig and look, you will find out. Nothing ever got looked into on that. On the tariff situation, Iran is, we had a thing going on where Trump had the upper hand by using tariffs to punish other countries that were going to do business with Iran to try to keep Iran on track. Now that the Supreme Court has said that he couldn't do that without congressional approval, Iran is ramping up their rhetoric, and they are actively rebuilding their nuclear facility. Liberals are having a heyday. So liberals are happy that Iran is now maybe unrestricted, but I don't think so, because President Trump always has a second backup and a third backup. China was being kept in check from screwing us over and sending over that big fat DRUG that starts with an F because of tariffs. Well, that Supreme Court says you can't do that. So liberals are celebrating the fact that China is no longer punished for screwing us over and sending over the big elf. So Trump was using also those tariffs to make business people build their plants and keep their businesses in America so that Americans would have jobs and it would bring more profit into the United States. So that right there is a problem, but liberals are happy about it. So basically, liberals are happy that America is getting screwed in the you-know-what with no Vaseline. Tell me what kind of person you have to be to celebrate the fact that something that Trump was trying to do for the American people to help them is being shot down. By the way, all those tariffs he was bringing in, there goes that $2,500 check that you people were laughing and screaming about and saying you were never going to get. Well, you're probably not going to get it now. Also, over in the UK, they're saying we can't use their airspace to fly over to take care of Iran, even though we are really ramping up our military presence over there. So, UK, you could go suck a big fat one, okay? But don't worry about the tariffs. Trump is going to handle it. The economy's doing great. Everything's improving. My business is starting to take off again. I knew this was going to happen. So, keep on keeping on. It is time for...
Okay, good one from her. She has a 2-minute one.
Called every name in the book. His whole legacy was destroyed and taken away over allegations and settlements. Ask yourself this: if you thought that your child had been done so terribly by a celebrity that was larger than life, would you take a settlement, or would you not stop until that person was in prison? How many people took settlements? The boys that spent the most time there are still defending him to this day, and he's been gone a very long time, and they've never changed their story. So now, after he's gone, years later, we find out the truth, which a lot of us already knew the truth. A lot of us never believed it. I didn't. But now it's too late. And now people feel terrible for putting him through what they did. To find out that this man was actually trying to protect children. Every name in the book this man was called. He was accused of things so horrific without any proof. Remind you of somebody? What will we be talking about years from now? About the man that was accused of doing things without proof. A man that was accused of horrific things, of being one way towards a certain color of people, of being a dictator, of being a man that was accused of doing the unthinkable to children with no proof. But people kept chanting it, and they wouldn't stop. But years later, will we be doing the same thing? Words will never hurt me, but sticks and stones will. Worst fucking saying in the world. Rest in peace, Michael Jackson.
Okay, those are two good important ones there. We got the next couple minute one here.
AI center / energy campus in the world, and it will be in Texas. And you will not believe what the stats are related to energy consumption and so forth on this project. All the stats I'm going to discuss is from this document, the combined operating licensing application for Project Matador, or the Donald J. Trump Advanced Energy and Intelligence Campus. Now, this project is going to be over in the panhandle of Texas by Amarillo, northeast of Amarillo. It's going to be 5,800 acres. When this project is done, it's going to be over 18 million square feet by 2035. It's going to have 4 nuclear facilities, 1 natural gas facility, a massive amount of solar panels, and in addition, BESS units, or battery energy storage systems. Now, to give you an idea of how massive this project is, the project is going to consume around 11 gigawatts of energy per year. That's equivalent to about 10 million homes a year, or 13% of the total power supply in the state of Texas currently. The 4 nuclear power plants, or AP1000s, will generate around 4.4 gigawatts per year and then the rest of it's going to be fed through the solar panels, the natural gas facilities, and BESS units. And typically the biggest concern is about energy consumption, which this facility is going to generate its own energy, but in addition, the water consumption in the region. The nuclear facility is going to be air-cooled instead of water-cooled, from what I understand, based off this document. So this facility is going to go ahead and consume around 16 million gallons of water a year. Now, is that high? Well, compared to the city of Amarillo, which basically consumes around 16 billion gallons of water a year, in the grand scheme of things, it's not that much. It's in, they have closed loop systems related to water, so they don't consume the water or waste the water like some other AI facilities. One last note, the company that is building this facility is named Fermi, and one of the major owners of this company is ex-Governor Rick Perry and some other billionaires. What are your thoughts? This right here.
Okay, that's a new guy on TikTok I haven't seen before. I got a 4-minute one and then a couple short ones left.
Do me one more favor. My beautiful daughter is here, Tallulah. She got detention to come and see you speak today. Could you pardon her, please?
Okay, thank you, Clay. Tallulah, where's Tallulah? Stand up, Tallulah. Tallulah, you are fully pardoned. Don't worry. Just tell the teacher I said it's fine.
But I was wondering if you could do me one more favor.
That was good.
My beautiful.
Okay, we'll end it with this one.
Today's broadcast, I come from the one and only Washington, D.C. for the Young Republicans Leadership Conference. I literally have the monument and the White House right outside my hotel. So don't mind the beautiful backdrop of the hotel room for now, but I'm sure I will have lots to report back on after the weekend is up. But for now, back to Colorado, where lawmakers are moving fast on some of the most consequential cultural and fiscal policies we've seen this session. From decriminalizing prostitution statewide and expanding red flag authority to ballooning Medicaid costs that continue to drive spending higher. Meanwhile, nationally, election integrity questions and commercial driver safety are back in the spotlight. I'm Tori with Rocky Mountain Voice, and here is your Mountain Minute for February 20th. Let's start under the Golden Dome. Like I said, lots to cover on this front today. A bill to fully decriminalize prostitution in Colorado is drawing sharp debate. The proposal would remove criminal penalties for adults who buy or sell consensual commercial sex, and it would prohibit cities and counties from banning it. Supporters argue it would improve safety and reduce violence, while critics say it strips local governments of control and imposes a one-size-fits-all policy across the state. Some lawmakers are calling it a sweeping preemption of local authority, labeling it a statewide power grab rather than reform. Parental rights advocates are also raising alarms over a wave of legislation. The Senate passed SB 26004, expanding who can petition for protection orders under Colorado's red flag law, including schools and healthcare facilities. Opponents warn that broadening petitioners increases the risk of wrongful firearms confiscations. And at the same time, SB 2618 would instruct judges in custody cases to consider whether a parent affirms a child's gender identity when allocating parenting time. Critics argue the measure raises serious free speech and religious liberty concerns and ties into ongoing litigation over Colorado's anti-discrimination law. In Southwest Colorado, former Representative J. Paul Brown publicly endorsed Naomi Reese for House District 59, citing her background in agriculture, land use expertise, and commitment to rural communities. Brown says flipping the seat is critical to ensuring conservative representation for farmers, ranchers, and small towns navigating heavy regulation from Denver. Speaking of the regulatory front, the Colorado Board of Health voted to ease one of the state's most restrictive delayed birth certificate requirements. Previously, applicants had to provide a document created before their 10th birthday. Now, the new rule instead requires a document that is at least 10 years old at the time of application. Advocates say the change removes what had effectively become a lifetime barrier for some residents. And then when it comes to the budget, lawmakers are facing tough math. Even after hundreds of millions in reductions, Medicaid costs are driving overall state spending higher than what was approved during the 2025 session. Shocker. Supplemental bills adjusting department budgets have largely passed, but the long-term sustainability of Medicaid growth continues to dominate fiscal discussions at the Capitol. Now, nationally, election integrity groups are raising new concerns about how the U.S. Postal Service handles mail ballots. A big issue, you guys. A recent report points to ballots crossing state lines before postmarking and potential delivery delays. In the 2022 election alone, 549,000 absentee and mail ballots were rejected nationwide, about 1.5%, commonly for signature mismatches or missed deadlines. Advocates say even small system breakdowns can mean lost votes. And in a major federal action, the Transportation Department ordered more than 550 active commercial driving schools to shut down after inspections uncovered serious safety failures. Investigators found unqualified instructors, inadequate student testing, and improper training equipment. Officials say the move is part of a broader effort to improve safety standards in the trucking industry following multiple fatal crashes. That's where things stand today. You can find all these stories and more, as always, at RockyMountainVoice.com. Make sure to head to our social media. We've got tons of spicy videos on there this week. And make sure you are subscribed to the Mountain Minute newsletter so you don't miss a thing. We've got a big report coming for you on Sunday, so don't miss that. Stay sharp, stay bold, and stay.
Okay, that's a new lady on TikTok for out of Colorado news. We got Colorado, Illinois, or California, a few other ones. Okay, gonna wrap it up. Got a lot of good stuff out. Got the long ones out, so hopefully tonight we can do the short ones. I know I got 2 Q videos still. And 1 Nick, I think. We'll play later. So, everybody have a good weekend. If I don't see you over the weekend and tonight. Thanks, Fine Eagle, Carol, Kay, Tim. Tim wasn't in. I don't know if he was in or not. And JJ. And I bless everybody. Love all. Remember, please don't forget to sub to the backup channels in the description box. Thanks. And yep. Careful out there, JJ. Love you. And love everybody. And stay safe, stay strong, get your faith. Never give up. And signing off for dinner break time. Back at 6. Chico dude.